I'm Spartacus. Spartacus is next. Welcome to the Greatest Movie of All Time podcast, the show that uses a unique grading style to redefine what the greatest movies are. I'm Tom Duncan.
And I'm Dana Duncan.
And tonight, for our 282nd episode, we discuss Spartacus from 1960, celebrating its 65th anniversary. Directed by Stanley Kubrick, written by Dalton Trumbo, cinematography by Russell Meddy, music by Alex North, starring Kirk Douglas as the titular Spartacus, Laurence Olivier as Crassus, Gene Simmons as Varinia, Charles Lawton as Gracchus, Peter Ustinov as Batatius. I think that's right. Badiatus?
I think it's Batatius.
Nah. Anyway.
Or Lentulus.
John Gavin as Julius Caesar, Nina Folk as Helena Glabrus, John Ireland as Crixus, Herbert Lamb as Tigranes Levantus, and John Dahl as Marcus Publius Glabrus. Background for the movie: Spartacus was released on October 6th, 1960 in New York City. On a reported budget of $12 million, Spartacus allegedly made $32.5 during its initial run over multiple years, while finishing at number 3 at the worldwide box office for 1960, but number 1 at the domestic box office that year. It was met with mostly positive critical reviews at the time and received 6 Oscar nominations for Best Film Editing for Robert Lawrence, Original Score, while winning for Best Supporting Actor for Peter Ustinov, Art Direction in Color, Cinematography in Color for Meddy, and Costume Design also in color. Spartacus has since been recognized by the AFI on the following lists. It was nominated for 100 Years, 100 Movies in 1998. It was number 62 on their list of 100 Thrills in 2001. Spartacus was the number 22 hero in their 2003 list of 100 Heroes and Villains. The quote, I'm Spartacus was nominated for their 100 movie quotes in 2005. It was also nominated for 100 Years of Film Scores in 2005. And it was number 44 on 100 Cheers in 2006. It finally made the 10th anniversary Redux edition of 100 movies in 2007 at number 81, and in AFI's 10 Top 10 list in 2008 as the number 5 epic film. In 2017, it was selected for preservation in the United States National Film Registry by the Library of Congress. It currently holds a 93% among critics on Rotten Tomatoes, an 87 score on Metacritic, and a 3.9 out of 5 on Letterboxd. So as we begin each week, Dad, what is your relationship to this film?
Well, I'm trying to remember when I first saw it. I think I've seen pieces of it early on, back years ago. And then I think the first time I watched it straight through was about 15 years ago. I think I've seen it one other time since, and then I watched it again for the show.
This was one of the ones that I crossed off, as everybody who's regularly listened to the show now knows. I've watched every Best Picture winner and both of the AFI Top 100 movies lists. This was one I needed to cross off because it made the second list at number 81. I believe about 7 or 8 years ago, I watched it with my grandmother at home, and I haven't watched it again since. I liked the movie when I watched it the first time. I don't like it any less this time, so I think it'll be a decent conversation.
One thing I did note, there was a couple of scenes that I didn't remember from the last time I watched it. So I think I watched a prior version because when I was reading up on the show, I noted that they inserted about 28 minutes of film that had been cut from the theatrical release.
There's a specific scene that we will refer to later where Crassus comes on to Tony Curtis's character specifically that was added back in from it wasn't even in the theatrical version.
That had to set the
censorship board.
Well, yeah. No, it was the Americans for Decency in Film organization that was boycotting and picketing the film. That just had to set them off.
Okay. I mean, when the film starts off and it's a painting where two swords come together at the tip and it's about gladiators, there is some rather homoeroticism clearly being displayed from the open.
Yeah.
This is one of the most sexually charged movies ever, homoerotically. I mean, truly, it's when he's talking about the oysters and the escargot or snails.
Yes.
He might as well be talking about penises and vaginas. Like, it is so on the nose, but it's so, I think, so well done. And it's why this movie's kind of endured in some ways like a queer classic. You know, I've said it a million times in this podcast, but when Cher Horowitz in Clueless has a date, the gay guy comes over and he brings Spartacus and he talks about how cute Tony Curtis is. She has no idea. She's like, hey, he is cute. Oh, I like Sparatacus. This is a good movie.
Yeah. I can just envision Trumbo sitting there typing this on his typewriter, going, yeah, sticking it to them right now.
What's your relationship to this?
So I've not seen this in 20 years, almost probably to the day. This is before I logged things or charted it, but I watched this in the fall after I graduated high school when I lived in Norfolk, Virginia. Rented it from the Narrow Video store. Watched it. Kind of like you, I enjoyed it. Had a really nice time with it. I thought it was very good. Haven't really thought about it much since, but I enjoyed it. I mean, it's a good movie. Like, there's not tons to say about it. It's, I would say, maybe Stanley Kubrick's least interesting work.
Well, given that I haven't seen everything he's done, I've seen most of the important films. I think I've seen everything except Eyes Wide Shut and The Killing. Excuse me, I also haven't seen Lolita.
I've seen all three of those. You know, Lolita's a tough one. Not really one I really want to revisit much. It's well made, but kind of a Lolita as a text, I think is tough, just in general.
Well, and that's fair. I don't know when that may be coming up on the show. I know The Killing is on the schedule for next year. But that being said,
I have heard Kevin Spacey is available to be the guest star for Lolita if you want.
Okay. I know nothing about it, so that goes over my head.
You know nothing
I literally
about it?
know nothing about it.
So it's based on the Vladimir Nabokov book, and it is about a man who becomes obsessed with I think she's 12, maybe 11, and he like takes her on trips, and they like just disappear together. And
okay,
yeah. And as she's starting puberty, and there's lots of in the book, they tamed it down for the film, but in the book, it talks about how he's commenting about her blooming bosoms.
Okay, well, we're here to discuss Spartacus.
In the annals of making Tom uncomfortable.
It's not making me uncomfortable, but we need to move to something else before we get everybody clicking away.
Yes.
Is this the crowning moment of Kirk Douglas's career?
I don't know. I mean, I looked at his catalog and, you know, Kirk Douglas was a huge star in Hollywood, but it wasn't like he had any real big films other than this one that you could point to. Most of the times when he's been in really good parts or good roles, he's the second character. In Harm's Way, which is one of my favorite movies, he's second character to John Wayne. So I guess I don't have anything else. He never won an Academy. I'm not even sure he was ever nominated.
Well, that was what I was trying to look up here just quick. I don't think he was either, but I mean, this is probably his peak of stardom, I would guess, where he specifically had all of the clout to get something made. He basically engineered this film and was the primary piece around it. But outside of that, like, I think there are better films that he did. I know we haven't discussed them, nor have I seen a few of them, but just a few examples: Ace in the Hole, Paths of Glory.
Both of those I prefer his performance in the film. I do think this is a very good film. I think Kirk Douglas is very good in it. I think he puts a lot on his shoulders here, but it's kind of the Charlton Heston and Ben-Hur thing where he's not particularly interesting. I do think this, in some way, probably is the crowning achievement from Kirk Douglas, just from kind of wielding the whole thing and getting it made. But I think Ace in the Hole's kind of, without a doubt, is his best performance.
Like, if you think about Kirk Douglas, what film comes to mind first? It's probably this one.
Yeah, probably is this. It's this and Ace in the Hole for me.
In Harm's Way for me, because I love the film itself.
So he was nominated for 3 Academy Awards and did win an honorary award in 1999.
Okay.
How close he got to winning any of those 3, I don't really know.
Yeah, because they don't release the rankings or the vote totals.
No, but sometimes you can look and be like, oh, that's the number 2. He won. He was in second place. Like Timmy Chalamet was probably number 2 last year. Behind.
Yeah, but you don't know that.
You don't, but you can kind of hypothesize. One of the things that I think is interesting about Kirk Douglas is that he's a little bit more cynical than a lot of his co-stars, or really, not really co-stars, but more colleagues at the time. All the people working in Hollywood didn't get this cynical, and I think he's pretty cynical, and Ace in the Hole kind of proves that. And I think that's the Kirk Douglas thing that really shines through, is that he's cynical. He's interested in making more dynamic films, which is partly why Stanley Kubrick is the director of this film.
Yeah.
They could have hired anybody to do this. And he was like, that's my guy from Paths of Glory. And he ends up, turning in a good film. It's his least Kubrickian, but it's still a well-made film.
Well, it's the only one that he doesn't really have editing control over.
Correct.
So that might be why it has probably the least amount of Kubrickian flair.
And he also he was hired 2 weeks into the film, because Anthony Mann directs the first 2 weeks. They fired him, and then.
Well, but I think it's said
Douglas fired him.
Yes.
Yeah. I think it is said that Mann, though, only directed like the first 5 minutes of the film of what's seen.
Not much. Yeah.
So most of this is still Kubrick, but his inability to edit the film, I think, does weave a different narrative. And I think they were trying to accomplish different things. And he clearly was upset and never wanted to work with Kirk Douglas again after this. So
a lot of actresses who also had that problem.
That is not proven.
Well,
there is only rumor and innuendo, and all of the principal players have been long dead.
Well, I'm just going by some of the things that were said by Natalie Wood in some interviews.
Okay, but she's also been long dead. It was only a rumor. It's innuendo from these interviews at best. And realistically, the only reason they resurfaced is after Kirk Douglas died. Because then all of it would stir right back up, because, of course, now we can talk about it. He's dead.
I will say that he had a resurrection in his career after he had a stroke and then wrote his book, Ragman's Son, that became a bestseller because it talked about his struggles as a Russian Jew. I mean, he was on Twitter and such, commenting on politics and current events and such, and he kind of had a resurrection later in his life in his 80s and lived to be 102, I believe.
103 was the figure I saw. But even so, I mean, he was born before the silent film era ended.
Yeah.
Like, he was at least in second grade before The Jazz Singer came out.
Yeah. He's very old.
Very old.
He is one of those guys. When he passed away, though, I was like, oh, he's still with us. Huh. he was so old that I was like, he had to have been gone. I mean, because Michael Douglas is 81.
Yeah. And is retired from acting.
And he's
Yeah.
retired. I mean, he made, I don't know if you watched it, because maybe I follow him on Instagram or somebody tweeted it. This video of Michael Douglas about a year ago slurping down an oyster that is about the size of his fist, and it's the nastiest thing I've ever seen.
Given how he got throat cancer, not the image I want to see of Michael Douglas.
Well, I don't know. His portrayal of Liberace was quite.
He's wonderful in that film.
Interesting. So
I think he's very good. Yeah.
Anyway, do you have a plot summary ready for us?
I do. Spartacus tells the story of a slave in ancient Rome who refuses to accept a life of cruelty and injustice. Born into slavery, Spartacus is forced to fight as a gladiator for the entertainment of wealthy Romans. However, his strength, courage, and sense of dignity inspire other slaves to follow him when he leads a massive revolt, freeing thousands of men, women, and children. Spartacus dreams of escaping Rome's control and living freely. However, the Roman army is powerful and relentless. Despite many victories, Spartacus and his followers cannot escape Rome's reach. In the end, Spartacus is captured and crucified, but his spirit of resistance lives on. The film shows how his fight for freedom challenged the might of an empire and became a symbol of courage against oppression.
Thank you, Dad. All right, what is this film about?
I think the easy answer is it's about seeing the seeds of the Roman Empire starting to crumble. I mean, we're still 400 or 500 years away at this point from it falling, but you see, I think the seeds of the Roman Empire really, like the fabric starting to tear a little bit, and the way the government's working, and Spartacus is kind of the thorn in the heel that is kind of exacerbating these problems. And then I think obviously the other component of that is it's about, wanting to live a life of freedom instead of one of oppression. And that is, seems pretty topical 65 years later too.
It's about challenging the oppressive authority of the elite and the government, and being able to speak your mind and speak your piece. Freedom of speech, more or less.
I don't know if I would say it's freedom of speech, but definitely freedom from bondage and oppression is the clear theme universally between all three of us. And there was a part of me, especially the first half of the film, because I think a lot of the reason that Spartacus is able to, well, I guess not able to, but the reason that he ends up revolting is over a love that he can't realize, because neither of them is free to love the other. And only until they are both free does he find his love in Varinia. So I think there's also a notion of love beyond the control of oppression.
Yeah, and I do think that that component is there, that kind of what spurs Spartacus to move is love. And in doing so, I think is some way Donald Trump is saying, love has started many a war, and it's still going to start many a war for forever. And we've read how many texts about war starting because of love. And then 40 years later, 35 years later, Braveheart's made, and it's the same kind of thing. It's an oppressed man who loses the love of his life, starts a rebellion because his wife is, I think she's murdered and raped in that film.
Yes.
And other than that, that's how many films we have like that build the same kind. So I think it's a sturdy starting point, but how much it really has to say, I don't know.
I think I saw a lot of Gladiator and a lot of Braveheart in this movie. I would agree with you there. It is quite easy to see the parallels. Maybe a little bit of Ben-Hur because I think they're very similar in style, but it's not like I could say Ben-Hur influenced Spartacus, since Spartacus apparently was like filming for 7 years prior to its release. Like it was a marathon production of this movie, apparently. So they're films that basically are the same thing or roughly around the same time, and one probably suffers in the other's wake by going second. But yes, I can see the definite influence on other films later on that would come, particularly in Gladiator and in Braveheart.
And I didn't look, and you might know off the top of your head, what did, I know it wasn't nominated for Best Picture, but what won this year?
In 1960, The Apartment.
Yeah, okay. Which is such a different film.
Oh, yeah.
It just doesn't feel like they're two films of the same year, even.
It's actually a very interesting year to start looking through the roster of what was available and like the depth of the year overall, because this is also the same year as Psycho, which also was not nominated for Best Picture. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I think Hitchcock might have been nominated for director, but I don't think it was nominated for Best Picture. I think it was only one of like 2 or 3 nominations he ever got.
Yeah.
He didn't direct much, though.
No, not at all. Okay, so you've already kind of related to this or alluded to it already, but where does this place in your Kubrick rankings?
For me, it's right at the bottom. Well, I'd probably put Lolita behind it, but it's the bottom. I think it's his least interesting. It might be above Full Metal Jacket to me, though, if I'm really thinking about it, because I don't think that film works in the whole. I think it's half of a good movie. I've got the same critique that everyone does. Once they leave basic training, it's not that interesting of a film. I don't think he can really pull the two sides of the film together. And, that movie doesn't have an intermission, but it might as well. Truly, there's a bifurcation in that film.
If he does only the first half of Full Metal Jacket, it's pretty high on the Kubrick list. But because there's 2 halves to that film, it moves like pretty near the bottom for me.
Yeah, that's, I think for me, I do like that first half quite a bit, but I do think it would fall somewhere in the top like 5. And that's just because I guess I love most of his films, and I like this one.
Like, I like this film more than I like some other Kubrick films. Like, I would much rather turn on Spartacus than Clockwork Orange or 2001: A Space Odyssey. Both of those, like, they're technical marvels, but one is just difficult to watch, and the other one is kind of boring.
I don't particularly care for Clockwork Orange. I think it's okay. I think it's so well made that I do have a respect for it, but
right.
I am in the camp that thinks 2001 is a pretty astonishing work of art.
Art, yes. Interesting, Like, the middle section of the film is interesting, but by the time you get to the ending or even parts of the beginning, I'm just not that interested in what's going on.
I like Dr. Strangelove and The Shining more.
Yes. I would probably put The Shining 1 right now.
Barry Lyndon and The Shining are constantly at war for my number 1.
I probably would need a revisit of Barry Lyndon, having only seen it once, to probably move it up. It is a movie I enjoyed talking about more than the first viewing of it.
And I can get that, because it is, you're kind of trying to figure out what the hell you're watching as you're watching it. You're like, why do I care about this guy? But I think Barry Lyndon's incredible. But it takes Spartacus and Barry Lyndon, and I think the way that he really gets into Lyndon and the way he doesn't in this is that I think he likes the fact that Lyndon is kind of a shitheel. Like, he's a piece of shit. And I think he enjoys that about him. I think Spartacus, he's like, I don't know, this guy's just kind of a hunk of beef. Like, he's he's leading a revolution, but he's not a very interesting character.
Yeah, I suppose all of his lead characters are rather eccentric, and I wouldn't call them all anti-heroes because some of them are just not heroic at all, but they're definitely complex characters. Like Jack Torrance has got a lot of layers to him. Barry Lyndon has a lot of layers to him. Dr. Strangelove and the President have a lot of layers to them.
Does Barry have
Yeah.
that much going on in him? He's a pretty simple guy that'll just kind of steal your lunch just to steal it. And
No, I think there's a lot of layers to Barry.
yeah, there may be.
I don't think he's all impulse.
He's not. No, I don't think he's all, but I think he is calculating, but he's also just a buffoon.
Well, to a degree, but he also rises well enough.
Because he looks like he does. That's why Ryan O'Neal's perfect casting. He's the beautiful guy that can move up the ranks because he looks like he does.
What did you have to say, Dad?
It's okay. Let's just move on.
Okay. Did you know Kirk Douglas had an unhappy time for most of the production? After a major falling out with original director Anthony Mann, he asked Stanley Kubrick, with whom he had collaborated 3 years previously on Paths of Glory, to direct. However, he had an equally difficult time working with Kubrick, as the men had frequent clashes about many artistic choices. The disagreements got so bad that both men reportedly went into therapy together. After the production, Douglas claimed he would not collaborate with Kubrick again if he was given the opportunity, and in his memoirs called Kubrick a talented shit. Douglas often said he regretted having Mann fired from the movie, and also that when he was offered the Heroes of Telemark in 1965, he agreed to take that role on the condition that Mann be hired as director. However, in reality, Mann was already attached to the project and had originally approached Anthony Perkins to play what became Douglas's part. Yeah, complicated figure. What I will say, and which is pretty much backed up as absolute fact, is Kirk Douglas was notorious for being probably the most difficult actor to work with.
A lot of those 50s guys were. They were all bravado, and it was, there was no checks and balances 60 years ago in a way that there are now. I think now you hear about some asshole on set and it spills out to us and we're like, oh God, who's the Flash? What was his name?
Ezra Miller.
Yeah. So you hear about something like Ezra Miller on set and you're like, this guy, it sounds like a terrible human being. And then you hear about him offset and he's like attacking cops and like people on the sidewalk. And you're like, we can get rid of this guy. Like the kind of behavior you could do 67 years ago, nobody would have patience for a day.
Yeah. Did you know, despite this movie being a huge box office success, gaining 4 Oscars and being considered to rank among the very best of historical epics, director Stanley Kubrick disowned the movie and did not include it as part of his canon. Although his personal mark is a distinct part of the final film, his contract did not give him complete control over the filming, and he frequently clashed with the studio and star producer Kirk Douglas, making this the only occasion on which he did not exercise such control over one of his movies. Which we already discussed, but definitely at least worth noting. Did you know the original version of this film included a scene where Marcus Licinius Crassus, Sir Laurence Olivier, attempts to seduce Antonius, Tony Curtis? The Production Code Administration and the Legion of Decency both objected. At one point, Jeffrey Sherlock, representing the censors, suggested it would help if the reference in the scene to a preference for oysters or snails was changed to truffles and artichokes. In the end, the scene was cut, but it was put back in for the 1991 restoration. However, the soundtrack had been lost in the meantime, and the dialogue had to be dubbed. Curtis was able to redo his lines, but Olivier had died. Dame Joan Plowright, his widow, remembered that Sir Anthony Hopkins had done a dead-on impression of Olivier, and she mentioned this to the restoration team. They approached Hopkins, and he agreed to voice Olivier's lines in that scene. Hopkins is thanked in the credits for the restored version. I never noticed.
Would not, no, never noticed.
No. Do you like artichoke?
I mean, that's quite something there.
Yeah.
Shall I shave some truffle in your mouth?
Uh,
There's a reason I didn't pick up on the meaning of that scene right away.
uh,
Okay, anyway, did you know 30 years after filming, Gene Simmons met the baby she held in this movie, who was working in the movie industry as a stunt woman? And finally, did you know cinematographer Russell Meddy walked off the set, complaining that director Stanley Kubrick was not letting him do his job? Meddy was used to directors allowing him to call his own shots with little oversight, while Kubrick was a professional photographer who had shot some of his previous movies by himself. Subsequently, Kubrick did the majority of the cinematography work. Meddy complained about this up until the release of the movie and, even at one point, asked to have his name removed from the credits. However, because his name was in the credits, when this movie won the Academy Award for Best Cinematography, it was given to him, although he actually didn't shoot almost any of it.
One of my favorite stories about him and Kubrick was when Kubrick comes up and he's like, "Hey, I can't see any of the people, can't see the faces. You need to light them better." And he says, "Okay." And he kicks a light over, it like falls into the scene. And he goes, "That enough light for you?" Kubrick said, "Well, now there's too much light."
Well, a lot of personalities here. So we'll come back and we'll talk about them after the break. We will take a quick break and we will be right back. Before we jump back into the episode, next week for our 283rd episode, we welcome back Peterson W. Hill to discuss Rebel Without a Cause from 1955, celebrating its 70th anniversary. Directed by Nicholas Ray, written by Stuart Stern and Irving Shulman, cinematography by Ernest Haller, music by Leonard Rosenman, starring James Dean, Natalie Wood, Sal Mineo, and Jim Backus. You won't want to miss that one, so watch ahead of the show by searching the Real Good app to find where it's streaming for you. That's REELGOOD.
Gotta love anytime you can have Mr. Howell on.
Very true. Before we get any further, let's turn to our guest. Peterson, what is going on with you and where can people find you?
Yeah, so you can find me obviously next week and 2 weeks back on 7.
A lot of people have found your 7 episode and your social network episode.
Have they?
Yes.
Nice. Glad they're seeing. You need 3-hour episodes. No, but you can find my back catalog over at War Charts at midnight with One Battle After Another just coming out. We've got a great series on Paul Thomas Anderson, my current favorite working filmmaker. I will be seeing One Battle After Another in 2 days. Very excited. I'm like pulsating with excitement. My wife's like, "I thought you were going to be packing the house." I was like, "Yeah, not going to happen this week."
Yeah, you may want to run out of the room screaming or plug your ears or whatever when we have our conversation here at the end of the show.
Yeah, I can take my headphones off. And
He has said I would not like it, and well,
I did not say that. I said my mother wouldn't like it, and I still believe that to be true because it is not an easy, approachable film. No Paul Thomas Anderson film you can accept at face value.
I loved it.
Yeah, I saw Damon. I saw you loved it. Makes me even more excited. I can't wait.
I told you, Dad, that it was a 4-day film for your purposes, that it would take some time to unpack.
Yep. I understood it immediately.
Some people think it's a surface level movie. I don't think that. I think there's a lot more in there to unpack, and I definitely need to see it again, probably to appreciate it fully.
I do not think Paul Thomas Anderson can make a surface level film. I just don't think he's capable of it. Even the things that people are like, "Oh, it's his lesser work." Inherent Vice, I find to be a completely thrilling movie about the 60s morphing into the 70s and the changing of culture. I mean, that movie blows my mind how good it is. And it's like my 7th favorite of his movies, maybe 5th. I don't know.
I think the most surface level movie I can think of his is probably Magnolia that I've seen.
I mean, Hard 8 is his most surface level, but that's also his first film. It's 90 minutes long. Very funnily, we were doing our record for War Starts at Midnight for that film, and my daughter was 1, maybe 2 at the time, and She crawls into bed. She's trying to sleep. She can't do it. I think she falls asleep. So I put back on Heart 8. Like 10 minutes in, she's like, I like my movies a lot better than yours.
Yeah.
And Heart 8 doesn't really have anything too bad, but I was like, oh, Jesus. I'm sure there was an F-bomb dropped or something. And,
Yeah.
Feel real bad. But
Part of what I will say without tipping off too much is that I'm old enough to have experienced just the tip of the 1960s and a lot of the radicals of the 1960s, and then watch this film and realized what this is in large part. And so that's where the layers go. The layers in this film are multi-generational because he's 60.
Who?
Paul or PTA?
no, not quite. He's like 52, I think.
I thought he was older than that.
So
He's not that much younger than me.
He made Boogie Nights, which came out in 97 at the age of 26. So that's
He's 55.
55, okay, 55.
So, but my guess is he's rather more of an old soul who kind of understands the 1960s more than most other people. And this is a callback to that.
Well, this is by far his most contemporary film since probably Punch Drunk Love. Everything else
definitely.
in his oeuvre is really period-esque.
Oh, we're back to oeuvre again. All right.
I got to touch your oeuvre once a week.
Well, at least it gets touched.
Well, she can answer for that in a few weeks.
A movie I've not seen, but I'm imagining that it is going to be a movie about how the older generation is let down the younger generation, because that's what it always happens. You're the 60s and you're these radicals like an Easy Rider, and then what Nicholson say? He's like, we blew it, man. We blew it. We had the chance and we did nothing with it, which is how every single revolution in America happens. That's exactly what happened a couple of years ago with Black Lives Matter, kind of trying to end police violence. All that was a couple months, and then revolutions are hard to sustain. They're hard to sustain.
Early 80s, I remember a New Yorker cover, which was where a guy in a business suit is looking in a mirror, and on the opposite side is this love child with the tie-dye t-shirt and the long hair and everything, and they both are looking like they're complete shock at looking at themselves in the reflection, and that just kind of sums up a lot to me.
All right. I think we belabored the point far enough at this point. So why don't we turn to this week's release of the Cinema Legacy poll? Last week, we left off at leaving you with revealing numbers 88 through 81. Just a quick recap. At number 88, we had a tie between Moonlight, Chinatown, and Wall-E. At 87, we had Boogie Nights. 86 was Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. 84, we had a tie between Titanic and The Social Network. 83, we had Who Framed Roger Rabbit. 82, Rashomon. And 81, Ben-Hur. Tonight, we will be revealing to you numbers 79 through 71. Again, we have some ties to reveal. So, without further ado, number 79, we had a tie between Mad Max Fury Road and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Next, at number 78, we have The Red Shoes from 1948.
Get too low.
Number 77, we have one of Dad's personal favorites, All the President's Men from 1976. At number 76, we have the other Best Picture favorite from 2016, La La Land. 75, we have Modern Times coming in from 1936. Number 74, we have another silent film, Sunrise, A Song of Two Humans from 1927, which I recognize as a co-Best Picture winner from the first ever Oscars.
I do too. Yep.
At number 72, we also have a tie between E.T. from 1982 and Beauty and the Beast from 1991. So far, our highest ranking animated film on the list. And finally, a film we just finished discussing a few weeks ago. We have Ordinary People from 1980. So to quickly recap, that was 79, a tie between Mad Max Fury Road and One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. 78, The Red Shoes. 77, All the President's Men. 76, La La Land. 75, Modern Times. 74, Sunrise, A Song of Two Humans. 72, a tie between E.T., the Extraterrestrial, and Beauty and the Beast. And 71, Ordinary People. So, as we've been doing each week, Dad, let's just quickly run down the list for what we have seen or not seen. I assume you and I have seen One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, yes?
Yes.
I know, Peterson, you definitely have since you were on the 75 Almanac episode, so that is an easy one. We have yet another Best Picture winner there. The Red Shoes. I have not seen it.
Was in my top 10 for a very, very long time. So I slid it at the last minute, slid in, I believe, The Wizard of Oz in its place.
Probably the right call, but having not seen The Red Shoes, I don't know.
Yeah, they're somewhat similar in some ways. So yeah, I'd just leave it at that. But
I mean, they both have red shoes?
No,
Okay.
just using the Technicolor to its fullest capabilities at that point. Both beautiful films. I love The Red Shoes.
All the President's Men, I don't need to ask Dad if he's seen it. We've covered it twice for the show. I actually need to ask Dad how many times you have seen it.
At least a dozen. At least. It's
Maybe
probably
a
more.
dozen in the last 3 years.
Yeah, I know.
It's probably 50 or 60 times. But let's be honest here.
Well, I don't know if it's that much, but
It's that much for me.
mm,
It's damn well up there.
I don't know. I'd have to really think about it, but maybe.
I definitely know Dad and I have watched La La Land since we watched it after the Atlanta Falcons blew out the Packers in the 2017 NFC Championship game before they got their ass beat by the Patriots.
Yeah.
Well, we did really well the first half.
First 3 or 2.5 quarters.
I know, and then then it just it flipped.
Yep. I remember that game very well. Modern Times, Dad, have you seen it?
Yes.
I have as well. Peterson?
I have as well, yeah. Not my favorite Chaplin. I do like it.
Okay.
I've got Chaplins above it. I like City Lights more, The Kid more, I think. I do really respect Modern Time, but if I was going to pick a Chaplin or two, it would probably be my fourth, maybe.
I think of any of the Chaplins, this is probably my favorite. I'm not a huge Chaplin guy. I prefer Buster Keaton personally, but
I agree. I'm a Keaton guy over a Chaplin guy. I think I think the choreography and the stunts are more interesting, and I think he's a better filmmaker.
74, Sunrise, A Song of Two Humans. We've done an episode on it.
Yes.
But Peterson, I'm assuming you've seen this as well?
It made my 50. Yeah, I love this film. It's, I think, a true masterpiece, kind of one of the early foundations of cinema that still really holds up to this day.
Then Beauty and the Beast, I've definitely seen. I think Dad probably watched it when we were younger. Peterson?
Yep, I love Beauty and the Beast. Great film. Yeah, nothing bad to say about that.
Saw Beauty and the Beast at least a dozen times, if not a dozen times on a Saturday with my daughters especially, and then saw a live performance of it at the Chanhassen Dinner Theater in the Twin Cities.
Then E.T., Dad and I just covered this for the Almanac episode that came out last Friday. But Peterson, I'm assuming you've obviously seen E.T.
I have seen E.T. It is definitely on my list. Very, very high up in my Spielberg rankings. I absolutely adore this film. I love that my kids love this film because I get to watch this film.
And finally, Ordinary People. We just covered this for the show, but Peterson, you've seen this as well?
Long history with this film, watched it in high school. Really, really appreciate this film. Didn't make my 50, but don't begrudge anyone who has it on there. It'd probably be in my top 75, 80. So, yeah.
I think it was inside my top 20, if I remember right. I know it was definitely on my list, but
yeah, it was within my top 20.
A great film. It really is.
So that makes 3 more Best Picture winners in this list. We do have at least one more animated film. You could say we have at least 2 kids films if you want to add in E.T. And then, I don't know, do we have any technically foreign films on this list? I'm not familiar with the Red Shoes being...
I mean, it's an
foreign
English
ass-
production. It's a Powell Pressburger Archers film, so, it's not really, I mean, it's an English film, but it's not in a foreign language, but it is an international feature.
Okay. I mean, by that extension, then Mad Max Fury Road kind of is, but...
Yeah, Murnau, obviously he's a German filmmaker. I'm not sure where they made Sunrise, though.
I think it was produced by Fox on the Fox lot.
Okay, yeah.
I think this was his first, American production when he came to the States, but
Okay.
I might be wrong on that. I'm almost positive it's a 20th Century Fox film, though.
Okay. Yeah, so then no, I guess not.
Which is a little too bad, but I'm sure we'll have some additional international favorites. But again, the variety and the diversity of the list so far has been unmatched. We have some definite great classics in here and some ones that Dad and I have to catch up on. So this is why we didn't put out a list on our own and wanted to round it out with other people's opinions, because while we might have our own personal disagreements, I don't think you can disagree with the list as a whole as to how we've gotten to this point.
There's a couple things on there that I can disagree.
You mean cargo shorts?
I mean, you got Fight Club. The fact that Titanic was, 84?
Well, there were a couple of people like myself that didn't even have it on their list. Didn't even come
I didn't have
close.
it on mine.
It's asinine.
It's not.
Asinine.
I don't particularly care for that film, but anyway. So, any other quick reactions to the list?
No, I think it's shaping up great. It's very fun to see this, each week kind of slowly kind of drip out and see, each week it's, oh, look at that. Pick that apart a little bit. See, it's interesting to see what falls where. And you get little gems last week, like Roger Rabbit. That just pops up. And you're like, oh, that's a fun one to kind of see that high.
Yeah, certainly so. But to this point, we've actually released 52 of the films on the list. So we're chugging along. Next week, when you're back for that as well, that will be halfway through the list already.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's my end with the list. I'm done.
So on that note, I just want to give kind of what the release schedule will be going forward for people. So next week, we have 69 through 61 that we will be releasing with Peterson. The following week, we will be doing All About Eve with Jailan Salman, where we will be disclosing 59 through 51. Then on the following week, Heather Stewart will be on with us for Requiem for a Dream, where we will reveal numbers 50 through 41. Then the following week, my mother will be on for Men of Honor.
Nelson.
It's a Cuba Gooding Jr. Robert De Niro film from 2000.
No. I know the movie.
It's an okay film. It's perfectly fine. Film.
And I'll have to remind her 5 times between now and then the name of it. She just loves the film, but she can never remember the name.
She's seen it once, 25 years ago.
I took her to the theater and she watched it.
We watched it at home. We rented it.
No,
because I watched it with you. No, I watched it with you.
No, I took her to the theater.
No, yeah. Anyway, but we will be releasing numbers 40 through 31. And then that will be the separation point. Once we hit the top 30, we will be doing these in 5 film chunks. So the following week, both my mother and Adam Freed will be on for the American President. We will be releasing numbers 30 through 26. The following week, we will be doing One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, where we will be disclosing numbers 25 through 21. Kieran B. will be back with us for The Lost Weekend to discuss 20 through 16. We have Clarissa Beckstead on for our Psycho revisit, where we will be talking about numbers 15 through 11. Then for our Heat episode, we have back Jailan Salman and Ralph Esparza to disclose numbers 10 through 6. We have Jen and Sarah from Movies and Us on to discuss Raging Bull. This will be our second to last episode of the season, where we will be disclosing numbers 5 through 3. And then Christmas Eve, the last episode of the season, Trent and Betsy Gorham from Never Seen It will be on to discuss Promising Young Woman, where we will reveal the top 2.
Good Christmas release. It's a cozy little film.
Yep. So, with that, I would also like to tell everybody, if you want to look back and you don't want to look through our Instagram page and try and find all of these, or the very long Twitter thread of all of the movies that are included in the CLP, which our social media Scooby-Doo has been slowly building over time. The entire list to this point, with links to individual episodes of ours, if you want to catch any of those, is available on our website, RonnieDuncanStudios.com/GMOAT podcast, GMOAT. And you can catch all of the movies so far released are available there. So, with that, we will move back to Spartacus. We left off at best performance. Dad, who do you have down?
I have Kirk Douglas. Even though it's a drier performance, he was the executive producer. So I'm going to give it to him both as actor and executive producer for having the vision of this film.
I tried to go out of my way to nominate anybody but Kirk Douglas because while he has a definite influence on the course of the film, and I don't think he's necessarily bad, but there's like half the time where I'm like, what are you doing, dude? You're just stone-faced looking at people. And it doesn't seem like he's emoting. I don't quite understand what performance he's giving, if he's like even part of this film.
DiCaprio won or got his Academy Award for less performance.
No, I'm sorry.
No.
That's just a cop-out. That was a very physical performance. If you can say that you didn't relate to it because it's something that is an entirely foreign concept, that's fine. But it was not a lesser performance than this, where Kirk Douglas just looks at people. It's not even in like a stern manner or something that like emotes something. He's stone-faced.
I mean, his face does look like it's carved out of the side of a mountain. Like, truly.
Well, somebody definitely took a chisel to his chin.
I mean, that thing it's like an ass crack in and of itself.
It's like somebody took a divot, like a golf shot out of his chin.
If you were going to do a character of Kirk Douglas, all you got to do is just chin the size of, South Dakota with a big old butt in the center, and you're good.
Well, a butt has a line. This is like a true divot.
Yeah, I guess it is kind of like an asteroid hit his face.
And also, let's talk about the hair. What the fuck is going on? Not only the rat tails, which may be partly period accurate, although it very much reminds me of the prequel Star Wars, which, but why does he have it long on the sides, but buzz cut or crew cut on the top? It makes no sense.
He parties on the side.
Okay.
He keeps it business on top, party on the sides.
Well, all right. Do either of you know who Frank Gorshin is?
Yes, of course.
Riddler on the Batman TV show. He was a renowned impressionist in the 60s and 70s. And all he did for his Kirk Douglas impression is he just kept pushing into his chin like this to make the divot. And that was the entire bit. I mean, it's so spot on because, it's not like he did a ton, but
there were parts in this where I wondered whether he could act. He is very good looking in the movie. There are parts of it where I thought, okay, he's at least playing a role. There are other parts where I'm just like, they couldn't have found anybody else.
Yeah.
That said, I am going to go Kirk Douglas as my guy. It's very hard not to, because he is executive producer, wills this thing and kind of pushes it up the hill. Obviously gets it made, hates making it, but shut up, Kirk. Like, I'm sure you made a boatload of money off this movie. It's probably one of the best things you were ever in. Because I think this is probably one of the best things you ever read.
Yeah.
Like Ace in the Hole more, but this is easily on his Rushmore. And so he didn't like working with Stanley Kubrick because he was exacting, like, whatever. But no, I think Douglas is easily the guy to point to his best performance.
So I have Stanley Kubrick. partly because he won somebody else an Oscar.
Okay.
Stanley Kubrick was the director, he was the cinematographer, and the rumor is that Kirk Douglas hired Dalton Trumbo specifically out of spite so that he didn't have to give credit to Stanley Kubrick on writing the film as well. So, with that, by the totality, since you both tried to make that argument, I'm going Kubrick, whether he owns or disowns the film or not.
All right.
Secondary performance, I have Charles Laughton. I think he's actually really good in this film. I have had my issues at times with Charles Laughton, but there are films where he's a very steady hand. He feels kind of like the wise older statesman in this film. He does very similarly in Witness for the Prosecution. He's just kind of got this air of confidence about him that I think is necessary in that role, even though he ends up meeting his demise by the end.
For me, I went with Dalton Trumbo simply because, if nothing else, it was an in-your-face to the Blacklist. And I think that was a purpose that Kirk Douglas had for giving him this job. And I know that for a fact that the Americans for Decency campaigned against it because Trumbo was a blacklisted writer, and the author of the book that this was based on wrote it in prison, where he was sentenced after failing to cooperate with the House Un-Americans, or the House
Un-American Activities Committee.
So, and it was supposed to be a film that ripped into the whole McCarthy era and communism hiding under every bushel.
Yeah, and I'm going with Dalton Trumbo as well. I think, I don't love this script. I think it could shave quite a bit of time off and be a better film. But I think there's some great evocative passages in this film. And truly, he is saying, like, it is a bit of a middle finger to the HUAC and McCarthyism, all that rise that I guess now is subsided, but it's only 2-3 years gone by the time this comes out. When does it officially end, the Red Scare? Like 57?
Oh no, it's like 55. Like it's
55,
after the
okay.
Army hearings, isn't it?
It kind of started dissipating. In 58, McCarthy was sanctioned by the Senate, and there was a recall election. In 59, he was recalled, and Gaylord or Nelson, no, it was William Proxmire became the U.S. Senator from Wisconsin to replace McCarthy, who had, while the recall was pending, I should say, died of a heart attack. Really, it was cirrhosis.
You mean McCarthy, not Proxmire.
Excuse me. Yes. McCarthy.
I was going to say, you confused me there for a second. Because I thought you at one time had worked for Bill Proxmire.
No, I worked for Les Aspin.
I'm sorry. Okay.
So, but I knew Bill Proxmire.
Fair enough. Okay. Now, most charismatic, I have Gene Simmons because of her extremely long tongue. No, wrong Gene Simmons.
She wasn't in Kiss at this time, though.
No.
That's at least 15 years away.
She fucking carries a significant portion of this film. Like, significantly, she throws Kirk Douglas on her back because the relationship between the two, I think they had good chemistry, and it's only because Kirk Douglas took one look at her and thought, oh my God, she is like beauty personified in this movie. Holy shit. She looks hot.
But okay, and this is not this kind of fact she's attractive, but if you were a slave and literally you're just in cages with other people and a woman so much as looks at you, I would imagine you'd get pretty excited.
Oh, really? But he's not an animal. I'm just saying, the relationship between them, the chemistry, was palpable and apparent, but it's because she helped carry him over that edge. I don't think he was acting in that moment. It had more to do with her just being fucking bonkers gorgeous in this.
Yeah, it might be.
Do you want to join me in this opinion, dirty old man?
I'm not necessarily going anywhere. I know the power of falling in love instantly with somebody based on what they looked like. I ended up marrying her.
I picked up my wife at a restaurant. She was a waitress. So
My sister's wedding rehearsal. I walked into the church. Somebody was doing the singing. I looked at her. I said, I think I'm in love. I think I better try and figure out how I'm going to have to spend time with that girl.
Okay. So, what is your most charismatic then?
For me, it's Peter Ustinov. He steals every scene he's in. He's just hilarious. I mean, everything about him, he just plays it just perfectly. So,
yeah, so I am lockstep with Dana tonight. It is Peter Ustinov. He is so funny in this movie. He's got a little light in the loafers, and he's got this. He's one of those Roman guys that never probably ever lifted a brick in his life, and he's so funny, and he's just like, he's got that great moment where they're trying to convince him to do it, and he's like, well, I'm a civilian. I'm more civilian than most civilians. He just knows exactly what to do. I think you give that script to most actors, and it's not nearly as fun. This thing comes to life whenever he is on screen.
yes.
I think, and Olivier's wonderful in this film. It gets a lot of guys who can just show up and hit a line like nobody in history, I think. Olivier is one of those guys that, he can say one word better than some people can say monologues.
Monologues.
Muscles.
You're irritating my oeuvre.
Pull that artichoke out of your mouth.
I do think, since none of us have nominated Olivier for anything, I think he is a great foil in this because there is layers to that character that even at the end of the film where he's clearly won and he's dastardly and he's got Spartacus's woman and his child under his control, there's still this, I don't know, a dualism between him and Varinia. That conversation that they have, he does not feel like he has the upper hand in that conversation.
No, I think that's partly what makes that character so good, is that Crassus is obviously he has all the power, but I think because he is kind of so feckless in some ways and can't, like, yes, he is winning, but he doesn't know what to do now that he's winning. And I think Olivier plays it so well. He's got in that same scene where Ustinov says, "I'm the civilian" line. When he says, "Oh, well, you know him. You've seen Spartacus," and he goes, "Oh, okay." Like the way he makes a meal out of that, basically two grunting sounds, is incredible.
Yeah. For the crowd that doesn't think Olivier can act, I'm sorry. I definitely don't agree. I know there are people that are better judges of acting than I am, but I think Olivier can act.
Well, so I will say, this is my take on Olivier, and so we can move on, but I think he is an incredible actor for doing a certain style of performance. I don't want to see his
range is limited.
Yeah, I don't want to see him do True West on stage, but I want to see him do anything by Shakespeare. Absolutely. He can activate that language like so many people cannot.
He can act a certain level of poetry in period pieces, but I certainly don't want to see his version of Unforgiven or The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Like that would not go well.
Could you imagine him in Rio Bravo?
Can you imagine him as being Felix Unger?
You know what?
No.
Let's get him as Red Hulk.
I don't know. You got to give the guy a break. How many years did he spend living with Vivian Lee? Ugh. She might be great looking, but man, everything you read about her, it had to be hell.
Yeah, she was very much like Scarlett O'Hara. There's a question whether she was acting at all in that movie. But anyway, let's go to best scene. I have 5 nominees here. Spartacus versus Draba, the opening gladiator fight. Then we have the Gladiator revolt. We have defeating Glabrus, which is when they get into his camp and send him back on his own horse, basically to grovel for his life. Then I have battle 2, I'm Spartacus. So basically the entire battle sequence up through the ending where everybody admits to being Spartacus and then is crucified as a result. And then I have At the Foot of the Cross, which is the ending scene of the film. Are there any other scenes that you'd like to nominate here?
I mean, I think the bathhouse scene should get nominated. The first of Crassus and Antonius, when he's talking about the escargot or snails and oysters. That scene, I think, is so well done. The way it's filmed, and Kubrick has the lace, kind of the curtains in front of them. So he's telling us, like, what you're seeing, you're not really supposed to be seeing. It makes you that much more interested in what they're talking about.
Yeah, I don't have any additional.
Okay. So out of the 6 here, then, Spartacus versus Draba, Gladiator revolt, bathhouse, defeating Glabrus, battle to I'm Spartacus, and At the Foot of the Cross, what is the best scene?
I have Gladiator revolt. To me, that's the epic portion of the film where they are able to challenge Rome.
I have At the Foot of the Cross because I think the emotional payoff and the catharsis in that moment works really well for me. Your son is born free. He will know no slavery. And that was the entire point of doing this to begin with. He doesn't fear death, but he certainly wants a better life for his son.
Yeah, I do like that because it's not a fear of death, but it is a fear of not living, not being lived your fullest. But for me, Dana and I are lockstep in every one of these. It is the Gladiator revolt. I think it's the most electric couple of minutes of the film. It's just choreographed so beautifully. You know exactly what's going on in a way that I don't think you quite have that same sense of orientation in the big epic battle. I think it's very impressive, and I do think it's a pretty exciting battle. But I don't think it's quite as well staged, and it's a little slow.
Yeah, I could get to where you're saying it's a little slow, especially that sequence where they're all like marching in formation and then they're trying to basically attack lines. I found that to be incredible because for the time in which it was done, that was something sequentially that, like, you didn't get that scale of hundreds of men marching on one another and then them lighting those grass piers on fire and rolling them at. Like, there's some stuff in here from a technical aspect as far as the stunt work and such that I think is extremely well done. But I understand some people might say that watching a bunch of guys march in place, even from a distance, is still somewhat slow and boring.
No, I do love the long shots of watching the formations from a distance and just seeing these huge swaths and masses of humans move in unison together. I think that's pretty thrilling. But the second half of the battle, once the fire piers are sent, those things aren't going as fast as I feel like they should be going. And maybe there's just that it's 65 years old and the battle's just not quite as, you can hide things in a way that you couldn't back then. I just feel like it's moving a little bit slower than I want it to.
For me, the biggest plot hole in this the first half of the film, or first 2/3 of the film, Spartacus is this guy who's willing to do everything and anything to gain freedom and to fight. He gets captured. Please. I mean, the whole film up until that point is built on the fact that he would have died trying to fight. How exactly did he get captured? That's the problem I have with it. And so at that point, I have a problem with it in general because it's contrary to the character.
I will say, one way I know that I am my father's son, as the fire piers are like rolling over guys and you see them, some of them light on fire, like the technical work and some of that, it definitely feels a little dated. But I am instantly thought, oh my God, how did they do this? And do they have work comp insurance?
Yeah. Yeah, like somebody had to get some second, third degree burns on this.
Yeah, almost guaranteed. Favorite scenes, though. I have the battle to I'm Spartacus. I really, really was like invested in that because there's the buildup of the formations. I know it's slow for some people, but you're just waiting for stuff to happen and you know it's imminent. So just watching them march and eventually knowing there's going to be an attack, to me, was thrilling. So I love that scene.
That's my favorite scene as well. I thought the battle scenes were epic and they were extremely well done. So
yeah, I'm right there with both of you guys. I think it's pretty incredible. I don't know, 15 minutes or so, maybe a little longer. But I love the telling of it. I think Douglas is really locked in those moments too. I think it's some of the best acting he does in the film. You're kind of, I knew because I'd seen it, but I was like, where's this exactly going to end? It does leave you in mystery in some way until the very end.
Yeah. As far as most indelible moment, there's really one moment from the film that everybody seems to remember, and it's I'm Spartacus. To me, that, as far as the universal nature of what's been pulled out into the culture, it's always going to be that. But do either of you have something else?
Yes. That was the easy one. I didn't pick the low-hanging fruit. I went with At the Foot of the Cross. This makes Spartacus into a Christ figure. And in this particular case, he's being crucified. And the child that's surviving, he's going to be free because of you, is completely Christian, which is Christ's on the cross and dies so that his children are set free. So to me, that's the most indelible moment. And the panning scene or the pullback scene with the roads lined with crosses, that's the part of the film that I always remember. Spartacus is a line, and I remember it. But no, I have At the Foot of the Cross as being the most indelible for me.
I'm just going to say I went with the bathhouse scene. And the reason is because I think the dialogue is so good. It's so, especially for 1960, kind of even more explicit than you'd think. And I think gets it Crassus in a way that a lot of the film doesn't, because it's one of the moments where you give a very long sequence to him and it plants the seeds for obviously his relationship with Julius Caesar coming in the next, 45 minutes later, Caesar comes in, probably starting to plant kind of what's going to happen. And then also I think one of the lasting legacies of this film comes from that scene, comes from the kind of truly really surface, it's on the surface, homoeroticism.
By the way, did anybody happen to see who the third person was in the film with a very brief camera shot? I am Spartacus.
Third?
The third one who said, I am Spartacus. It's George Kennedy.
Oh,
Really? Huh.
Yep. I played it back twice to make sure, but it's George Kennedy.
Okay. Huh. Well, regardless, that looks like a good spot for our second break. We'll be right back. Before we jump back into the episode, and before we get to the Stanley Rubric in a minute, if you're ever curious about our master greatest movies of all time list that has every graded movie we've ever discussed on the show, there's a link in the episode description of every episode of this show, or you can go to RonnieDuncanStudios.com and find it as the top entry on the greatest movie of all time podcast show page. That has the grades we've done so far for all 254 movies we've graded, and we continue to add more each week. Make sure to check that out as we go and follow along. Dad, do we have anyone to remember this week?
Actually, no.
All right.
Which is a good thing.
Let's move on then to best funniest lines. I have a feeling that Peterson's just going to be doing the entire reenactment of the bathhouse scene for us. He's so enamored with it.
It's a great scene.
I have Spartacus here. When a free man dies, he loses the pleasure of his life. A slave loses his pain. Death is the only freedom a slave knows. That's why he's not afraid of it. That's why we'll win.
Spartacus, you and I have a tendency towards corpulence. Corpulence makes a man reasonable, pleasant, and phlegmatic. Have you noticed the nastiest of tyrants are invariably thin?
Antonius, are you afraid to die, Spartacus? Spartacus, no more than I was to be born.
I also have Antoninus. I'm Spartacus.
Crassus, one of the disadvantages of being a patrician is that you occasionally are obliged to act like one.
Julius Caesar, I thought you had reservations about the gods. Gracchus, privately I believe in none of them. Neither do you. Publicly I believe in all of them.
Draba, gladiators don't make friends. If we're ever matched in the arena together, I have to kill you.
Lentulus, but I'm a civilian. I'm more of a civilian than most civilians.
Gracchus, this republic of ours is something like a rich widow. Most Romans love her as their mother, but Crassus dreams of marrying the old girl, to put it politely.
My last one, Julius Caesar, about Spartacus. Did you fear him, Crassus? Crassus, not when I fought him. I knew he could be beaten, but now I fear him even more than I fear you.
Lentulus, good luck, and may fortune smile upon most of you.
Spartacus, maybe there's no peace in this world, for us or for anyone else. I don't know. But I do know that as long as we live, we must stay true to ourselves. I do know that we're brothers, and I know that we're free. We march together.
Okay. Let's march. Let's go to the Stanley Rubric then. Legacy is up first. This is a measure of the legacy of the film as shared between two groups, the industry and the general audience, 5 and 5 points apiece for a total of 10. We are only discussing the period roughly from 1965 to today. Dad, would you like to go first or second?
Second.
I think that the industry has clearly revered this. It's been hanging around a number of lists. I had a very long list from the AFI alone commemorating this movie. It has been preserved, I guess is the word, in the Library of Congress. So I don't think from an industry standpoint and even a critical standpoint, it's a forgotten film. It does have certain stars attached to it. It does have the power of, even though he's disowned it, Stanley Kubrick. So I do think there is an industry push to recognize this, but it's not at like the level of some other of its peers or even a Ben-Hur that at least won Best Picture. And if nothing else, the CLP has definitely taught us that my argument, I don't remember how many episodes ago, that a lot of people see movies because it won Best Picture is clearly the truth, because we have a lot of hurting around Best Picture winners. It's like we're averaging 2 or 3 per drop or per 10 that we've released in the CLP poll. But regardless, I have that at a 4. The audience, however, it is a film that, unless you're going to go and pick through the AFI Top 100 list, both of them, you probably won't have watched this. You do have to go a little bit out of your way. It's not widely available per se. I think it was available on like Tubi or something this weekend or something like that.
Amazon, but you could get it rented from Amazon.
Well, you can rent it, but I mean, like, it's available in generic streaming kind of thing. Not that you have to go out of your way to purchase it, which was my point. But from that standpoint, I think there are some cinephiles that have seen it. I don't think this is an unwatched film, but it's not certainly something that's like circulating a lot on the TCMs of the world. So I'm going to give that a 2 for a 6.
I think that the success of this film had two long range results. One, it allowed Kubrick to do Dr. Strangelove, which was within the 5 years, but ultimately 2001. I think the studios were willing to back him because he had success producing another film.
But he didn't have studio backing for those.
It doesn't matter. What I'm talking about is the fact that he was able to do them. If he didn't have studio backing, he had private producers backing them. People were willing to give him money to do his films.
All right, my argument for that would be that Kubrick was so pissed off at the end of this film that he never wanted to work under somebody else's control. And so he went extra Kubrick and started to become very fanatical about doing his own projects that he wrote and directed with a fine-tooth comb.
Where did the money come from?
I don't care about the money. I think the bigger impact is that Stanley Kubrick did the stuff that he wanted to do and didn't want to work for anybody else again. That's kind of a negative impact of the film, but I don't think because he directed this film, he got money to do other films.
Okay. One, thank you for interrupting me in the middle of my talk, because this is seldom done. In the entire history of the show for 5 years, I've at least been able to articulate basic summaries of my arguments without somebody being a butthead and interrupting me. Number two, I don't understand where you're coming from, because he had to come up with the money from someplace. He didn't just have the wealth to produce his own films. And what I'm telling you is there was backing as a result of the fact that he had an extremely successful film, even if he didn't like it. As far as the public, the informal poll at our office, about 40% of the people, including those under 30, had actually seen the film. So somebody's watching it. Yeah. We had about 40% of those, and there were several under 30 who had actually seen the film. I don't know how.
That is utterly
I don't know
shocking.
why. Yeah, I know. So from an industry, I'm at a 4.5, which is only 5 points or 0.5 points above you. But for the public, I think that this is a film that most people, if they haven't seen, at least have seen parts of or are familiar with it. And so I'm going to give it a little bit more. The simple fact is that there was a hunger for this type of film that was remade. And I think without this film, you would not have Gladiator or any of the other similarly ilked films. So I'm at a 3.5. So I'm at an 8 overall.
I'm utterly shocked, because that means from our office cohort, they have seen this film more than they have seen Ben-Hur. Because I don't think a single person put up their hand when we asked about Ben-Hur last fall. And I find that truly difficult to believe.
We had a very wide, and I even went through and asked, you've actually watched the film? Yes. Because I asked, watched or know of. Then I had watched the film, and I think only 2 out of the group dropped their hands. So I don't know.
Okay.
I think there's more people who have seen it than what we anticipate.
There is a TV show that could have led some people to it. Maybe, I don't know.
Maybe people had an interest, after Gladiator. Maybe some people had an interest and saw the film because it kind of paralleled this other film, and there was kind of an uptick in it. But that's what I'm going by.
Okay.
So I'm at an 8.
All right.
So for legacy, on the industry side, I don't think this leaves all that much of a lasting impact from 65 to now. I think, yes, Kubrick makes more movies, but I think he was bound to make more movies. Paths of Glory was incredibly well received, even though it didn't make a ton of money. And then he makes Doctor Strangelove, and 2001. I think he's always going to be a filmmaker that is going to make movies. And then on the audience side, I think people know I am Spartacus, and that's about it. Other than some Simpsons references and some bathhouse references, probably in Simpsons as well. Like, other than that, I don't think the public knows all that much about this. So I'm going to go 2. I'm going to go 5.5 for Legacy on this.
You had to
Easy
throw
math.
off the whole numbers and the average.
Yeah.
It's a 6.5 between the three of us.
Nice round number, though.
Now, impact and significance. The initial 5 years that we discounted a second ago from 1960 to 1965. What is the impact and significance shared among the same two groups? The industry and the general audience, 5 and 5 points apiece for a total of 10. Dad, would you like to start here?
Yes. The public, I'm going to start with, and that is a 5 because it was the top grossing film of the year. People loved going and seeing it.
Domestically, yes.
I'm at a 5. The industry, I was going to go with a 3.5 originally because it was never nominated for Best Picture at the time. It was very few, 4 or 5 Academy nominations. But then again, I thought about it. This led to Kubrick moving to England. This led to him doing Lolita and then Dr. Strangelove, all within that 5-year period. And so I'm going to give it a point or a little half a point up for that. This did not propel too many other people into stardom. I found it interesting that Tony Curtis, only 2 years after Some Like It Hot,
One.
is a starring role of this film.
He wasn't a starring role, though. He's
As
kind
a
of like...
co-starring. It was listed as co-starring.
Yes, and he has a very minor part. You know why it's a co-starring role? Because Some Like It Hot had come out before this. Because this took so freaking long to make.
Okay.
So
Well,
his name got higher billing as a result of him being in a film that he probably started and finished while this was still being made.
Yeah. Well, ultimately, I think the situation is that it did not really push his career any further. He kind of cooled off in the 60s.
Could you say it established Ustinov as at least a more bankable character actor? Like, I wouldn't say he was a star,
Correct.
but I think
Correct.
he's the only one that you could really make a case for.
I mean, he wins 2 Academy Awards in the 5-year span.
Yes. In fact, he was supposed to play Clouseau in the Pink Panther and then backed out for another film role and was replaced by Peter Sellers. He also kind of parlayed this into more roles throughout the 60s. So that's also part of my whole concept. So industry, I'm at a 4, so I'm at a 9 overall.
Okay. Industry, I have a 4. You can't discount that it was a high grossing film, which I think makes it somewhat significant. It was made with a lot of stars of the time, some established stars. Like Tony Curtis being near the top of billing. By that point, yes, because he was in a very small role that apparently got bigger as it kind of went on. So I think there's a concerted effort by the time this movie was actually done to make him a bigger part of it. And by extension, then put him near the top of the billing because he'd become a star by the time it had actually come out. Then you have Olivier, you have Charles Lawton, you have several established stars in the film. You have Kubrick directing, who, for better or worse, does have name recognition by the time this is made. It is nominated for a number of Oscars, doesn't win that many, and frankly, it's not up for some of the bigger awards. It's more of a technical Oscars darling, but at least it gets some credit for that from me. I have a 4 there. On the audience side of it, I reserve the 5s like for very elite company in this, because otherwise, if it just simply finished as the number 1 at the box office in a particular year, even domestic, it was number 3 at the worldwide, you'd have a lot of films in that category, and I think it should be somewhat reserved for movies that really made an audience impact. And while I think that this was a big movie, I don't think it was nearly as big as some other movies that were coming down the pipe. So by that extension, I have a 4.5 there. I have an 8.5.
I think this is an interesting one to do this with because I'm going to lean on one fact that neither of you mentioned, but JFK went to the premiere of this film and kind of essentially crossed the picket line in some way. You made it more accepting to deal with Hollywood blacklist, screenwriters, actors, all of that. And I think that alone brings this to a 5 on the industry side. Now, the audience side, I'm going to be at a 4.5 because made a ton of money. I think the audience for the next 5 years, Ustinov wins a second Oscar a couple years later. Tony Curtis, this is kind of the peak of his time. And then Kirk Douglas, kind of the peak of his time too. So everyone's at their peak, except for Kubrick, who obviously was not. And I don't think Olivier was, but Olivier just shows up and he's gonna give you the same level of professionalism and class he always does. But yeah, so I'm gonna be at 9.5. I think there's enough evidence there to suggest a really high 5-year, and then it really tapers off in the 60.
So Ustinov won 2 supporting actor awards for Spartacus and Top Copy, but he also was nominated in another category, not as an actor.
I wouldn't assume a writer.
You would be wrong. Original screenplay for Hot Millions in 1968.
I don't even know the film.
I'm not familiar with it either, but
Yeah.
just an interesting tidbit while I'm looking stuff up here. But regardless, it is a 9 average between the three of us. Let's move to novelty. This is a measure of the originality on one half of the category and the execution of the film. Normally, when we talk about originality, it has to do with the subject material, maybe some other tangential things having to do with the film. But overall, we have that on one side. And then how well the movie is executed, kind of its quality on the other side. 5 and 5 points apiece for a total of 10. Peterson, would you like to begin the category?
Sure. So I think this is a really interesting one because I believe the execution of this is very high. This is just a beautifully made film in every regard, whether it's the cinematography, editing, I think the score, we didn't talk about the production design or opening credits by Saul Bass. So I think I'm at a 4.5 for the execution. And then novelties where it gets a little tricky because I think this is a very basic film, but it is infused with enough of the politics of the late 1950s that does give it a little leg up there. So I can say novelties at a 2.5. So that gives you a 7.
Okay, the execution was good. I never understood how we've equated epic film to really long. Okay, you could have cut, I know they added back 28 minutes for some scenes, but you could have easily cut 30 to 40 minutes of some of this that just is pointless. And so I have some problem. So I can't give it any higher, but I'm going to go overall because the scenes with the battles was just beautifully shot. How it was laid out, the amount of people, the camera angles, etc. I'm going to go with a 4.5 for execution. But for originality, this is one of the series of post Red Scare blacklist things. The Crucible by Arthur Miller had been out before this, which, again, was an anti-blacklist play. So there were several. It did, though, from novelty, specifically bring the author of the underlying novel, who was in prison, again, for not disclosing names to the House Un-American, or the House Committee on
HUAC.
Un-Americans. HUAC. Okay, I guess better. At this point, I guess it doesn't matter if I use HUAC or the full, longer name. But okay, so I am at a 3.5 for originality, so I'm at an 8 overall.
Okay. As for me on this one, I don't think there's anything particularly original about this. We had sweeping roadshow epics, and while Dad's point is taken that epic apparently means long, in this era it kind of was. Basically every major film was long with purpose because people went out, it was an event. They tried to make these extra long with the opening overtures and the intermissions and the music playing. A lot of films at this era were like this. Look at Lawrence of Arabia a couple of years later. Look at Ben-Hur the prior year, the 10 Commandments. There are a lot of epic films from this era. I don't think Bridge on the River Kwai quite fits, but that's also an extremely long movie. Now, if you want to really criticize epics, the modern ones where we don't have these being like an actual event and that you want to create a 3.5 hour Scorsese movie, no, that needs to be cut down. Get a new fucking editor. I'm sorry. Anyway,
No.
Regardless of my opinion on that, I don't think there's anything that original about this. Again, given that some of its predecessors the few years before had kind of created the template, and it kind of missed its chance to be original by being second or third or whatever in the pecking order by the time it actually came out. So even though it did well with the audience at the time and it was well received, it still suffers from the fact that it ended up going after a couple of its peers. So I have a 2 there. On the execution side of things, I have a 4, only from the standpoint is that there are some technical aspects to it. We talked about the fire pyres or whatever that just kind of rolled over people, and it didn't really look great or realistic. I have a little bit of a trouble with the really terrible looking blood anytime they try and show it. Like somebody gets stabbed and it looks really fake. I don't know. It looks like 60s blood for whatever it's worth.
I saw it in 4K, so it
Well,
was
yes.
even worse.
And there's a part of this where it just feels like Kirk Douglas is not acting to me. So I'm going to give it a 4 there. I have a 6. So that means it averages out to a 7. Let's move to classicness. This is a measure of how well the movie has aged or not. It is a very nuanced category, and so the person who lives in the most nuance, Dad, would you like to lead here?
We start with a 6. The ultimate category is how well it speaks to today. We have a group of politicians, one of whom is willing to manipulate events to gain power and control over a broad area and to have homage paid to him on a regular basis. We have another politician who's wise but old and gets forced out of position because, in part, his age and his inability to control events on a battlefield.
And he trusts poor advisors.
Yeah. All right. And so we ultimately have a hero who is deposed and destroyed. In part, these are foreign people who are living in their country and who are being manipulated for political and for financial gain by the masses of people with wealth and power in the country. This could be an epic that tells the story at almost several hundred times over the course of American history, and unfortunately, yet today. It's not a perfect classicness, but it's as darn close as I can think of right now without it being an epic one, a film that, defies time. So I'm going to go with a 9.
Okay. I'm going to go a -2 from our baseline for Kirk Douglas and his antics alone and his difficulty on set and firing multiple people and getting into just general unpleasantness. And that's not even to go into all of the other rumors and surrounding things about Kirk Douglas. But yes, I give it a point up for Dalton Trumbo. I give it a point up for the general applicability towards civil rights that you could say that this applied to as we were starting to really heat up the civil rights movement, because you could say oppression and civil disobedience and the rest of this could be mirrored within the film. And I think that there's at least a +1 for the timelessness of the film. So I ultimately came down at a 7. I didn't quite apply it on the same lived in moment that Dad did, but I can see where he goes with it.
Yeah, so I think the thematic material of this is aged incredibly well. 65 years removed, we're bound to repeat some of the same mistakes throughout history. We always do. And I think this is one of those movies that latches on to greed and power and how those things are all corrupting in some way. And so I'm going to give points up there and points up for Trumbo. But I'm gonna make this math nice and easy for you, Tom. I'm landing right at an 8.
And that will be the average.
By the way, Peterson, I would be curious after you've seen one battle after another, and you match it up against this, what you think.
Yeah.
Because I think there's parallels. Completely different films, but when you look at the application of the characters, I see parallels.
Yeah. I'm excited to see it. See it on Friday. We talk about it next week and really get into it. And
I can hardly wait for your reaction.
All right. Finally, rewatchability. Insert whatever subjective test you have for how rewatchable the film is. I'll start off with our objective baseline here. It's long. The plot isn't well edited at times. It's older. There's less action. It's a little bit slower. It involves a little too much politics, probably for some young people. So I'm going to go with a 5.5 here.
My rewatchability here, I've seen it twice, but I haven't seen it in 20 years. I was in my teen years when I watched this for the first time. It's been since then. When you were throwing movies out, I was excited that I saw this. I was like, oh, that gives me a chance to see this again. It's been 20 years. I've obviously grown in my estimation with Kubrick films. And some of those I've seen, The Shining I've seen 20 times since 2005 when I first saw this. And I watched it and had a very pleasant time. Did have to stop it twice just because life and children, and it's 3 hours and 16 minutes long. I timed those with the intermission and then kind of right at the hour mark too, kind of right after the sleeve Revolt. I think it was right an hour 6 or so. I'll probably watch this in 10 years with my kids, but I don't see myself returning to it that quickly. I'll have no qualms. If it's on in the background, I'll certainly watch it, but this does not jump off the screen for rewatchability for me. I think I'm going to land right at a 6. No. 5.5 with you, Tom. I think 5.5 sounds right.
Okay.
I've seen this film now twice. It's probably enough. I'm 61. I very well may never watch this film again before I die. So, and that's fine. I like the film. It's a good film. I'd recommend it. If somebody wanted to watch it or that I was watching films with, I would watch it again. So I can't give it any points down for that. The best way of watching this film is, let's say that I have the new variant of COVID and I'm not feeling well. So I just put it on and let it go because I can follow the story enough at this point in time that it wouldn't matter, because just waking up enough to watch and seeing the epics or what's going on would be good enough. So maybe that's my new standard. Is this a COVID film? Anyway, I'm a little lower than you guys. I'm at a 5.
Okay. That's a 5.33 average between the three of us. For audience score on this one, we had an 87% for Google users and a 76% for Rotten Tomato users, giving us an 8.15. So to repeat the categories, we had a 6.5 for legacy, a 9 for impact and significance, a 7 for novelty, an 8 for classicness, a 5.33 for rewatchability, and an 8.15 for audience score, giving us a final total of 43.98, and currently placing it on our list at number 173 between Top Gun and Avatar.
I was about to say 172. Top Gun and Avatar?
Yep.
Okay. I like this more than Top Gun. I like Avatar more than this.
Okay.
I'm in the reverse.
I like this more than both of those.
Well, actually, probably I do. Because Top Gun is almost unwatchable at this point.
Top Gun Maverick's not, though.
No,
That was
that's
decent. It's enjoyable.
Yeah.
It's a fun romp.
What? It's like one of the greatest action movies ever made.
No.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
That's way too much recency bias.
I've
It
seen
is
like
a
6 times
very
since.
fun film to put on a Saturday afternoon, and that's about it. It should not be on any like greatest lists, in my opinion.
I think it is essentially a perfect screenplay.
No. But anyway. So if you disagree with any of our scoring or just my takes on Top Gun Maverick, apparently, as I'm sure people will come at me for, you can write us at greatestalltimemoviepodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on our website, roningduncanstudios.com/gmodepodcast, or find us on any of our socials at gmodepodcast on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Letterboxd, TikTok, or Blue Sky. All right, let's move to remaining questions. I only have one for this, and I have, what happens to Spartacus's son?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I think I would imagine that he just lives a normal life. I don't think she's going to raise him to be anything other than just a normal man. Then he might find out who his father was and want to fulfill some kind of political aspiration or lead people in that way. But I don't think he starts out as anything other than just kind of a normal kid and maybe comes at it in the back half or back way.
Let me say, for the purposes of this, we do not need a Spartacus 2. I do not ask this question so that Pedro Pascal or Paul Mescal has to be in something else with swords and sandals. That's not the point of answering this question. I guess my real intrigue is with the money and the prestige that Ustinov would buy him. Does he become A, a Roman citizen, and B, Roman nobility? Because that's a lot of money.
I think his name becomes Brian, and he becomes a potential messiah later on.
No, I'm Brian, and so's my wife. Okay. Thanks for answering the question, Dad.
Yeah.
We do have one listener question this evening in the form of an ADA, a since retired segment, the Ask Dana Anythings. Kieran asks, Dad, as an Otto Preminger fan, have you seen or heard of Exodus, starring Paul Newman?
Okay. In response, I had not heard of it, and I immediately looked it up. Not only does this have Preminger and Paul Newman, it has Eva Marie Saint, Peter Lawford, Lee J. Cobb, Sal Mineo in it. I was not familiar with it, had not heard of it, but I immediately found that it is available for free on Pluto, And this will be potentially on my list of things to do this weekend because this actually sounds like it's something pretty good.
So that probably answers the next couple questions, which was thoughts and is it worth a blind buy? He says he found a nice double cassette VHS copy.
Well, first off, do you have a VHS?
Yes, he does.
Hell yeah, he does.
Yeah, this has been a thing. He has this viewing lounge with a VHS, and they have like this VHS library he's slowly collecting.
Okay.
Like he's going to garage sales and buying VHSs.
Okay. Wow. I do have the name of a good counselor.
It might require an intervention first.
Yeah.
But the answer is yes. You think it is
Yeah.
at least worth a...
Yeah. If you can get it for, minimal price, the cost of a movie ticket.
Most of these are going for like $1.50 or $2.
Yeah.
You can't buy
Yeah.
a burger at McDonald's for that.
No, you can't. They're more expensive than that.
Yes, they're like $3.
Yeah. So yes, if you can get it for under $3, go ahead. Buy it.
Yeah. Don't take away anything from your child.
Okay. Just
Anyway.
remember to rewind before you return it.
Yeah, that's the other thing. If you're going to invest in all this VHS, you got to have one of those like auto rewinders.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think your mother threw all of ours out.
Yeah.
I'll say, at least Kieran knows that in about 10 years, maybe 12 years, that kid is going to think that VHS is the coolest thing in the world. Hey guys, look at my dad's VHS collection. Come on.
We won't discuss my dad's VHS collection.
We won't discuss mine either. Anyway, regardless of that, any other remaining questions for either of you?
Nope, I'm good.
Was Saving Ryan's Privates part of your VHS collection?
No, but yeah, I won't go there.
Yeah. Anyway, moving on. I would like to thank our guest, Peterson, for being back with us. You will be back with us again next week, but just remind everybody again what you're working on and where they can find you.
Yes, you can find me in my back catalog at warstartsmidnight.com. As well, you can check out my Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, Letterboxd, all those at Peterson W. Hill. And then here next week and then a couple weeks before. So yeah, check me out here too.
All right. Remaining thoughts for the week. We kind of already discussed generally one battle after another. Dad really liked it. I still am sitting with it. I didn't dislike the film. There were parts of it that I greatly enjoyed. I thought Sean Penn was amazing in the film.
Oh yeah.
I think the
he doesn't
longer
get an Academy, I don't know.
Yeah, I think he's probably the odds-on favorite for supporting actor, even though that's going to be a really difficult category, as it always is every year. But if this film ends up being crowned in the way that it seems like it's going to be, he's got to be the front runner.
Oh yeah.
I think Leo's in the conversation for best lead actor. I do think that at least 3 people in this movie could be very easily in the conversation for multiple nominations for supporting actors, or one just being maybe the lead in that category as well. I think this could garner quite a few nominations, and it does feel a little bit like a coronation in the same way that like Oppenheimer felt 2 years ago. That's the early sense I'm getting. I think it's very dark humor. I think the longer I sit with it, the more I appreciate Leo's performance. I still don't know if I quite grasp Benicio's performance, but there's a part about Benicio that's always been a little bit foreign to me, and I don't mean that like literally to be like unintentionally racist here. I'm just
He is always trying something, and sometimes that is activating, and sometimes it is very distancing.
He plays it very straight. Some people think it's very funny. I don't know. I just didn't really get much from that character. But your mileage, of course, may vary.
If you grew up in the 70s and were aware of some of the radicals that were involved in various movements, there was always that guy, and it's Benito, and he's playing that part straight on.
You mean
Which is that-
Benicio?
Benicio, excuse me. It's Benicio, which is he's playing it straight on. He is there to do a job, and he just is very calm and calculated. Nothing ruffles him. He just goes one step at a time and does what he's supposed to. In this particular case, he's helping immigrants, across the border. Could point to several characters from the 60s that were similar of ilk and origin.
Okay, I was the only person in my entire theater who was laughing throughout the movie, except for one line. Do you have any idea what the line might have been that got the other old people in my 3 p.m. on a Friday afternoon showing to laugh?
No, I don't.
Mind you, these are all like Madison level liberals, so
Yeah.
that might be part of it, but Semen Demon.
Okay, yeah. All right.
Also, is there anybody that's better at playing cisgendered white man of privilege than Tony Goldwyn?
But
Yeah.
he's great at it. And that guy's been riding that since Ghost.
And the thing is, Tony Goldwyn is like one of the biggest liberals on the face of the planet.
Yeah, but you know what? If I was somebody and I was casting the Pete Hegseth movie, you ask Tony Goldwyn to buff up a little bit, and he's a perfect Pete Hegseth.
Yeah,
You know?
I'm sure he could do some pull-ups for you right now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. He's too thin to be Hegseth. He's very in shape, obviously, but he's broader shouldered. He's a big guy.
Can't have any fat generals with beards.
Hell no, because of course the commander in chief that guy's got a 8-pack. He's looking amazing in the mirror.
Hey, he's using a med bed and he's going to be just fine. Anyway, a couple of other notes to specify here, just some other work that you can pay attention to. Of course, we mentioned it earlier in this episode, but our episode of the 82 Revisionist Almanac just came out last Friday when this is releasing. So go check us out there on Andrew's feed. You can also find my work on the newest episode of I've Seen That One with Clarissa Beckstead, her new podcast. I discussed 12 Angry Men with her and Sarah Shea. That should be coming out here shortly. I'm not sure the exact release date, but if it hasn't come out already, it will be very soon. So otherwise, we have some exciting things coming up. I started working on, let's say I went down a rabbit hole this afternoon and started working on the season 8 scheduling and compiling the list of things to put together, because we're going to do a live show at the end of the season, which is basically us just recording how we normally go through the scheduling.
Yeah.
Which is me reading a very long list of films to Dana and saying, okay, 1 out of 5, what's your preference on this film? And then him giving a rating. I'm not saying that we need a foil to that, but it might be funny to have random people pop into the live feed and basically harass Dana about him giving 4s or 5s to things that are like really old and stuff that only interests him, and giving like 1 to Speed.
Wait, season 8, is that 26?
2027.
27, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're in season 6 right now.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've been going for quite a while.
There are certain films that, we go through the list and I go, I don't even need to, give it a 1 or 2. I just go, ugh.
There are a few films, I will admit, that I've already slotted onto the schedule, either due to promises that I've originally made, such as we did promise our super fan from Australia that we would do The Castle, which is currently scheduled for our, I think it's like March 31st recording, and it'll be coming out on like April 6th or 7th of 2027. She had requested that one like 3 years ago, and I told her we would do it. So that's been slotted. I also made an executive decision. Any film that has an anniversary during that year that was also on the Cinema Legacy poll list that we have not yet covered got automatic entry onto the list.
Okay.
I figured that was only fair.
Sure.
So that still leaves us like a good 30 some slots. And then we have a pool of films to select from our revisits list that would be fun as well. But I want to say I have like 65 films for you to rate 1 through 5
Okay.
on your interest level and such. And then we'll see how that kind of like slots out.
In the category of don't look at how the sausage is made.
I don't know.
If you want to watch the video of us doing this,
I think to some people it might be interesting. I think to other people it might be completely boring, but
I think some people will find it hilarious because usually I don't diss a film by just saying no. I usually make some snide comment.
Whatever. It has more to do with you. I just offer you a list of films.
I'm aware.
Sometimes there are ones that I will personally put back on the list or make sure that they're rated higher, but that's like I use 1 or 2 vetoes regularly, and that's about it.
I know there's several films that are on the list that I kind of go, I don't want to watch this again or I want to watch it to begin with, but everybody else will. All right, fine. We'll put it on the list.
Well, there are a couple of 1982 films that made the automatic entries that I know that you didn't particularly care for, but
please do not tell me Fast Times is on the list.
No, I am not covering Fast Times.
I emailed Andrew and said you cannot remove my snark comments about that film.
Yeah. So I think that's it for us this week. Thank you for listening. You're tearing me apart! Next week, for our 283rd episode, we welcome back Peterson W. Hill to discuss Rebel Without a Cause from 1955, celebrating its 70th anniversary. Directed by Nicholas Ray, written by Stuart Stern and Irving Shulman. Cinematography by Ernest Haller. Music by Leonard Rosenman. Starring James Dean, Natalie Wood, Sal Mineo, and Jim Backus. You won't want to miss that one, so watch ahead of the show by searching the Real Good app to find where it's streaming for you. That's REELGOOD. Please like, follow, rate, and review, or whatever on whichever platform you have so that more can join in our fun. You can also email the show at RonnieDuncanStudios.com or at greatestaltimemoviepodcast@gmail.com, or find us on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Letterboxd, or TikTok at the handle @GModePodcast. The Greatest Movie of All Time is a production of Ronnie Duncan Studios. Our show is mixed, edited, and written by Thomas Duncan. Our music is thanks to Purple Planet Music. Our distributor is Captivate FM. Our technical provider is Riverside FM.